Welcome to another Road to Hollywood. We've got a very exciting show for you tonight. It's going to be very informative. We've got a lot of news that you definitely want to take note on. We'll get right into it. You know, obviously creating art, whether it be music, your videos, films, whatever that is a passion. And it's a great thing, but obviously it's show business. And tonight we're going to talk about the business side of it. We've got two prominent entertainment attorneys. We're going to talk about some of the legal issues, some of the things you want to do to definitely protect your rights, maximize what you're doing in building your independent business. Again, it's no longer where a record label is going to do everything for you or a film studio is going to do everything. More and more, you're creating and building out your projects or your career independently and hopefully in conjunction with some of these larger companies. So tonight, without further ado, I want to invite you to join with us in welcoming two esteemed colleagues of mine. They both spoke at IES last year, and we look forward to having them back this year. First of all, Ben McLane, who I go way, way back, and we could talk about that at some point. But Ben is a prominent music and entertainment attorney. He's worked on legal issues with the likes of DMX, Gilby Clarke of Guns N' Roses, Big Bad Voodoo Daddy, Love, Keith Sweat, Afro Man, Kaya, Black Veil Brides, POD, the Remnants, who created the theme from the show Friends, and Busy Bone, War, Genuine, Four Tops, LL Cool J, and many, many more. Please welcome to the Road to Hollywood, Ben McLane.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ben. And also, to get another perspective, we have Litwak, and he is a prominent music and entertainment attorney with many years in the business. We're going to talk about some of his esteemed experiences and knowledge in the business. He has represented Chris Stokes, who, of course, is a film and music producer with credits like You Got Served, B2K, and so much more. Spencer Davis, everyone from Lala to CeCe Peniston, and producers that have worked with Destiny's Child and Beyonce, Lil Wayne, everyone from Genuine, also from Diddy, Timbaland, Pharrell and the Neptunes, Tricky Stewart, Jermaine Dupri, and many, many more. Welcome to the show, Litwak.
Thank you, Jay.
It's a pleasure, guys. We'll get right into it. We know, again, you viewers are passionate about the music, the video, the movies, whatever you create, and there is no more issue that's more important than legally protecting your work. Obviously, the last thing you want to do is have someone claim that they created, your property, or certainly get into any kind of litigation that would take away your rights or profits in your hard-earned business. So, guys, let's talk a little bit about, first of all, how you guys came to being a entertainment attorney. What was it on the legal side that drew you to the business, Ben?
Well, I actually had interest in being a manager initially, and I moved out here from the Midwest, and I went to law school because I didn't really have any family or business connections necessarily to get into the business. But I'm doing my research. It seemed like being an accountant or a lawyer or having a pedigree like that makes it a little bit easier to get your foot in the door. So I came out here to go to law school, but that was really the platform to try to be an artist manager initially. And I did that for a couple of years, as well as being a lawyer, kind of simultaneously, trying to decide which one I kind of wanted to lean towards and put my priorities into. Eventually, I discovered being a manager is very difficult because if you don't have a client or clients that are generating substantial revenues, because it's all a commission-based business, that it's really hard to survive and raise a family, et cetera. So I decided to put my focus on being an entertainment lawyer, and I really, really liked music, and that's sort of what my passion had always been. And growing up, I always studied the charts and the players and the names. I was always into all those kinds of minutia, you might call it, but credits, et cetera, and it really came in handy to know those things, actually, but you have to be a real fanatic for it to stick in your brain. But that sort of led me to become a full-time music attorney, and these days, music, film, video, they all really overlap, so I've had to expand into other things, but we're primarily a music law firm.
Well, that's great. I think we go back almost 25 years. It was the late 80s when we first met. I remember you were just taking the bar at the time, and it's very exciting to have seen you grow and prosper. And and represent some great people. And Glenn, I know you were from New York and made it out to California. What was it about the legal side of representing these great artists and companies in California that drew you?
Well, I started out as a business litigator. And but by living in LA, I had friends. I got into a circle of friends who were in the business. One of my friends worked at Fox Television. One of them was an agent at William Morris. And one of them worked at a record company, MCA. So one time, while I was still a suit and tie business litigator, I went to see my friend at MCA Records. I had never been inside of a record company before. And I walk in, and everyone's wearing jeans, and they're playing music, and I realized that they were having a lot more fun than me. So I started, that was the seed that developed. And my older brother is a well-known independent film lawyer, Litwak. So I also helped me get started in the business through him. So friends and relatives, I would say, basically helped me get in. I never worked for an entertainment law firm. I started transitioning into entertainment law about 17 years ago.
Well, that's great. It's such a evolution that we've all seen here in the last couple decades in the music and entertainment business. And I know you had just referenced that, Ben, where it's kind of blurred the lines. You know, these days, content is content, whether it's video or audio, long form, short form, whatever it is. You know, there are creators of the content, there's distributors and marketers, and there's broadcast and other companies that license this content. So, Ben, why don't you give us a little perspective on the greatest changes that you've seen here in the last, 20 years as far as the evolution, especially in the music and film business?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, really. Hopefully I'm not beating a dead horse, but when the internet came in, it just changed the way music and content is distributed. And before, 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to put a record out or a video, you had to find a distributor, a traditional distributor that could get your video or a record in a record store, which we don't really have anymore. The chains are sort of gone. I mean, you still have the Best Buys and the Targets, but they just stock the Taylor Swifts and the Madonnas, the big names. But the internet allowed people to, or anybody really, to create content and put it up. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to sell, but traditionally or at least to put it out in the sense that you can distribute it and make it available for people to find, hopefully buy, but at least create some kind of audience for yourself. And those barriers went away, so you didn't really need the middleman so much. So that's the biggest change I've seen. The problem is still trying to find a way to monetize your content so you can make a living. So I think artists these days have to think beyond just selling a product. They have to think about merchandise, touring, endorsements, sponsorships, tying in with other situations and scenes and affiliates, just to try to expand and become a brand.
Now, Glenn, obviously that was a seismic shift when all of a sudden it went from needing a big distributor to anybody be able to put up their content on a iTunes or Rhapsody and things like that. What are some of the biggest changes and challenges you've seen in that adaptation of artists that is so easy now to create the music or video content, but again, trying to monetize that or more importantly, protect it in the wild, wild west of the internet?
Well, as far as finding talent, that's changed completely with the internet. It used to be that the record companies would hire A&I people, and they'd go up on Sunset Boulevard and watch a couple of shows and see a few bands. And some of these A&R people would make six figures. Now they hire people just to scour the internet looking for new talent. And the A&R game has changed completely. The record labels also are spending less money on developing talent. Advances have gone down a lot for new talent. But, the major labels are still there. And just because you can, as Ben was referring to, just because you can put content up doesn't mean you're going to make any money. Most of the people who are making substantial money have some affiliation with a distributor or a label of some sort.
Sure. Again, it's the new era of the music and entertainment business. That's, of course, what IES is all about. We're going to be giving you details later in the show, how you can attend and the dates and all the details of some of the special events like the IES Honors and all that. Again, our guests tonight are two prominent music and entertainment attorneys. It's Ben McLane and Glenn Litwak. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Right now, we're going to go to a little video clip. We just had the Paid Dues Festival 2 days ago. And again, we did an interview with Chang Weisberg, who's the CEO and founder of Guerrilla Union, who's not only created Paid Dues with MERS, but also created Smokeout with Cypress Hill and created Rock the Bells, one of the more successful hip-hop tours in America and the world today. So we're going to go, this is very apropos, a little interview here with Chang in his office in the Nerve Center of Guerrilla Union, and he talks about how two CEOs, he and MERS, actually met very innocently as they were both passing out flyers in front of the Fonda Theater, and created the impetus for Paid Dues, which was 25,000 people, probably $2-3 million gross, an amazing show this weekend. So coming right back on the road to Hollywood, here is Chang Weisberg, Guerrilla Union.
We'll see what happens.
Great. Let's talk about some of the oldest and greatest brands. How did you and MERS get together on Paid Dues?
You know what? It's funny because it's Paid Dues time. That story's come up a couple of times, and you know I love talking about it. To be honest, I had met MERS a couple of times when Living Legends played Rock the Bells. And then I'd always follow him as a fan. We'd promote it. I mean, the Legends, whether it was 3MG or Grouch and Eli or MERS on his own show, they're very DIY guys. So I, to be honest, I can't remember what show it was. I can remember we were at the Knitting Factory. And then at the Fonda, 2 separate occasions. But it was at the Fonda, and I don't remember who the show was, but MERS was outside handing out flyers and his tapes, and I was outside handing out flyers to one of our shows. Yeah. And he ran into me, and we had a conversation. And I was like, "Hey, MERS, how's it going? How's it going?" He's like, "Chang, right? Guerrilla Union do like Rock the Bells or Smoke Out." He's like, "That's cool. Really nice to meet you." It was like the first time we shook our hands and said, "Hey, I'm not paying you to be here, right?" So and we both happened to be handing out flyers, which is awesome. Yeah. And he had said, "You know what? I've been meaning to get a hold of you because I have an idea. Me and my friends would like to throw a festival, kind of like what you do with Rock the Bells, but all independent guys, Chang." And I thought, well, that's a great idea. So I said, "Give me your cell phone." So he's like, "What?" It's like, "Give me your cell phone." So he handed me his cell phone, and I put my phone number in it. And I said, "Call me when you get a chance." And that's how we met, was outside the Fonda, and we talked about Paid Dues. It wasn't Paid Dues then, but then MERS was like, "I'm going to give you a call." And MERS followed up. I mean, I think it was the next day that we had a conversation, set up a meeting at our office, and the rest is history. But we were handing out flyers, and we were mutually respectful of what each other, what each one of us was kind of doing, and that's how it spawned.
Wow. So it's basically that entrepreneurial spirit that a lot more and more of these artists are going independent, the rise of technology to get the word out. It's the underground is the mainstream in a lot of places.
Who's handing out these big record deals? There's some big record deals out there,
Very few.
Trinidad James, I think, signed a $2 million deal with Def Jam or something like that. Those are very few and far between. Even bands that have sold tens of millions of records now need to revisit the independent model. Not so much because I think there's not labels or other people who'd be interested. I think more so because just the model has changed so much. The album
easier
format.
To record, easier
it
to
is.
market.
If I was a recording musician today, I'd have to unlearn some things because I might still be thinking I need to put out a record. And you don't. You just need to consistently put out good music when it inspires you, and make that music available in a meaningful way for meaningful reasons. I think that's what's unique about today. Is that technology has made it so that even established acts who really can take advantage of the independent model more so than unestablished acts because they don't have a core fan base. So for the newbies who have no fan base, you're in a great situation because technology and everything makes it possible for you to put out your message. Unfortunately, millions of people are putting out a message. Yeah. So how do you get through that clutter is the biggest challenge for a new artist. For an established act that already has a fan base, the indie model is a big win. Big possible win because you have the attention span of your core fan base, and if you can eliminate the middle people between you and your fans, amen. And so the amount of work that an established act has to do nowadays, maybe before that gold standard record or that platinum standard record was the standard in a traditional artist's mind of success. Independent gold is 50,000 units. Independent platinum's 100. An established act would make more money to sell 100,000 records directly to its fans than it would if it sold 1.5 million records through a major label deal. Now that's the part where I never understood the record business. Meaning, I get it, but I don't understand why people would take a bad loan. It's a bad loan. You're locked up for what's traditionally an excessive amount of years. You don't own your masters. You might not even own your own image and likeness because you sell all that potentially.
Your URL.
But for people, there's reasons to do things, and I don't want to turn this into a label bashing discussion. I'm just saying that as you talk about technology and the industry evolving today, there's more opportunities than ever, and myself and Murs definitely have taken advantage of Elaine and grown something from the ground up, no doubt.
Thank you so much again, Chang Weisberg and everybody at Guerrilla Union. An amazing job with paid dues. Rock the Bells is coming up right after IES this year. Going to have a lot more news and information on the incredible Chang Weisberg, who's being honored this year, along with other hip-hop legends at the IES Hip Hop Honors, which, of course, is the first day. That's August 7th. We're inducting NWA, which will include Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC Ren, DJ Yella, doing very special tributes and inductions to Tupac, Nate Dogg, and Eazy-E, and also inducting Bone Thugs and Harmony, DJ Quick, Cypress Hill, Bun B, Warren G, and many, many more. So again, we'll be giving you the websites, how to register and get involved with IES this year. Hats off again to Chang Weisberg. We're also going to be featuring the legendary Violet Brown on an upcoming show, who she was the number one urban buyer for decades and really broke people like NWA and Dr. Dre and everyone, but she is now one of the chief executives at Strange Music, which is Tech Nine's company, who is one of the headliners on the paid dues stage. And we've got an exclusive interview coming up with Tech Nine in a future show. So please stay tuned. Tonight, again, it's all about the business. It's about how to protect your art, your music, your business. It is show business. And those that don't master the business side will definitely potentially lose out. Loss of income, loss of rights, copyrights. This is not a good thing. Our guests tonight, we have two prominent entertainment attorneys. Ben McLane and G.Litwak are our special guests. And again, you can see these guys in person at IES coming up in August, where half the battle is forming these relationships, meeting powerful people in the industry, getting their business card, and hopefully doing some business together. We're just coming off of the interview with Chang. Guys, let's talk a little bit about the change of a record contract over the years. The big buzzword of the last few years has obviously been the 360 deal, where the artists are having to give up, some percentages and some rights, that weren't necessarily involved before. And I know it comes down to leverage. Some of the established artists, have the power to maybe avoid or negotiate those. And, the new artists are pretty much, susceptible to what these companies demand these days. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience in the changes of a record contract? I know with a major, it's gotten very, very long and, enormous, of what they want to demand from their artists. And I know you see independent, recording label contracts too. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in recent years?
Well, like you mentioned, they have these 360, or they're also called all rights deals, which basically means that the label is going to participate not just in making records with an artist and owning their master recordings, but oftentimes they want to participate in the touring aspect of the artist's career, the merchandising aspect of the artist's career, the songwriting or / publishing aspect of the artist's career, even things like modeling, acting, endorsement, sponsorship, pretty much anything an artist does in their entertainment career. That's that's the worst case scenario. That's not always necessarily bad, by the way. I mean, if a label's really going to put in the necessary money and the promotion power to make all those things valuable, then they, arguably are entitled to that piece of the pie. But that's not the way it used to be. It used to be just labels worried about putting out records and making money from records, and everything else was off the table for the artists to make their own money off of. But everything kind of drives it. Things kind of work in synergistically, and they drive each other. So I think labels just finally decided one day, well, why should we promote all these other income streams if we're not going to participate in it? So, and if you're a new artist and you're brand new without a fan base, you really do need a platform and somebody to help you launch. And that's the trade-off. But you definitely try to negotiate things into your deal where maybe the percentages go down over time, or with success, or maybe you can keep some things off the table, like publishing you can keep, or merchandising you can keep, or the percentages aren't always 50%, which, a simple way of doing it is just the labels want to split everything 50-50, but it doesn't have to be that way. Some things can be 10%, some things can be 30%. So everything's negotiable. Even when you're new, you always try to negotiate what you can, just don't accept it.
Well, again, I think it really comes down to leverage. If you're out there independently making a lot of sales and noise and deals on your own, obviously these companies, not only do they want you more, but they seem to have to be able to negotiate more, because going in, we're in the era right now where Macklemore's got the #1 song in the country and world without a record deal. Mac Miller went recently #1 on the album charts without a record deal. And you're looking at the last 5 Grammy winners of the album of the year are all independent artists that are affiliated with independent labels. So it seems that, again, if you can build that leverage and have some larger independent success, you've got greater negotiating power. And, of course, you have other options besides taking that deal. Glenn, why don't you talk a little bit about your, experience with the contracts? Obviously, one of the biggest concerns, I guess, of a new artist is you're pretty much signing away a lot of the, control, if not all of that. They want to control your website, your likeness, and your image, and all that. But then again, they won't guarantee you a release in a lot of cases. What has been your experience as far as the artist being able to negotiate any kind of negotiated release, or if they can get out of the deal if the company doesn't put them out in X number of months?
Well, it's all a matter of negotiating leverage. If it's a completely new artist who has no fan base and is pretty much unknown, it's difficult, but it also depends on how bad the label wants the person, whether there's a bidding war. But generally, if you're just starting out, you don't have that much. Ben mentioned some of the things you can negotiate. You can try to exclude certain streams of income. You can reduce percentages, but you're not going to, unless you're Drake, you're not going to eliminate a 360 deal if you're a new artist. But the thing is, unless the artist is successful, the ancillary revenue streams won't even come into play. You're not going to have merchandising unless your music becomes popular. You're not going to be able to fill up stadiums. So certain aspects of the 360 deal don't even come into play unless the artist is successful.
Well, I know it's so true that, again, these days the artists and the independent labels have more options than ever. It's never been easier to get your music out there, but again, through independent sources, and of course we at Indie Power are heavily involved with that, you can go directly to so many of these great now internet radio sites, the satellite radio, still independent types of course the YouTubes of the world are becoming like the new radio, of the business, breaking artists. And there seems to be more options. But I guess if you're more of a pop artist, you almost need that big machine and, big dollars behind you. But these days, if you're a niche artist, whether it be more alternative or hip-hop or metal or punk, there seems to be more options than ever to avoid that deal. And Ben, again, talk a little bit about some of your experiences with some of the independent success stories you've seen kind of come up through the ranks, and the types of negotiating power that they have to do kind of a hybrid deal where the major label maybe doesn't own it all, maybe there's a shared copyright, or there's more favorable terms. Like Glenn mentioned, with a Drake who came out without a record deal, lit the world on fire, and pretty much negotiated his terms. What are some of the things you've seen?
Well, I mean, if we work with a lot of new artists or indie artists, and when they're first starting out, a lot of times, a lot of times you have to form your own label and own your own everything. You own all your rights, you own your masters, you own your publishing, you own your logo, trademark, and you try to create your own brand through self-promotion, YouTube, etc., internet radio, and then maybe you do have some power to either approach an independent label or a major. And if you have enough of a fan base where they see dollar signs, they might do a joint venture with you where you could co-own the masters, for instance. Or perhaps you could, they could fund, you could start your own label, you have your logo going, and to keep that brand going, maybe they'll stick that logo on all the product and maybe help you fund it, develop other artists on the side. I think if you're an artist, you should focus on your own career first, but if you get popular enough, maybe you can develop other artists and have your own vanity label and become the next Jay-Z or whatever. But I mean, I think it's pretty hard to retain a lot of rights at first if you're expecting somebody else to fund everything. But I do see, I'm not sure what like the Lumineers, for instance, who just sold 1 million albums and a couple million singles, are on a really tiny label out of Nashville called Dual Tone. And that's historically like an Americana/country label. It's a very small company. I've been to it, and they've probably grown now, but they used to work out of this little Victorian home in Nashville. They had like 3 employees, and I don't, the Lumineers are competing, and so is Dual Tone, with major labels, but I imagine the Lumineers signing with an independent label probably got a much more favorable deal, probably a short-term deal, maybe just a couple of albums. Sometimes you can just do a one-off with a small label, so you can use the label to help take you to the point where maybe you can move up to a major, and then you have the leverage because they've helped you launch to sell and get a fan base going. And again, with indie labels, you can usually keep more of your rights. Maybe they don't grab as much, but that's not always true. I mean, I think the 360 deal probably originated from the independent world because the smaller labels didn't have the huge catalogs like a Sony or a Universal, so the only way they could survive was sometimes to grab income streams from the artists. I think the majors actually copied the indies, but there are a lot of more artist-friendly indies. But I mean, we always, regardless of who you are when you're starting out, I mean, within reason, there's parameters, but you always ask for certain things, try to retain certain rights. All they're going to say is no or yes, or they meet you in the middle on certain things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the giant deal that 50 Cent did with the vitamin water definitely caused ripples. With Interscope and a lot of the companies that they had since put this guy on the map. All of a sudden, he's doing a $100 million deal, and they're not seeing a penny of that, while his record sales had gone down. So I know there was probably a lot of reasons they saw. But again, when you really look at an artist's career, again, you've got your masters, you've got your copyrights in publishing, you've got your merchandising rights, you have your live, rights, that all these can be licensed and, of course, used on tours and merchandise and so many different areas. And Glenn, let's talk a little bit about, the old days where everybody was trying to get a record deal. And I find it funny that a lot of the younger artists that are looking for record deals don't really know what a record deal entails. And they think that they can sign all these rights away and somehow still operate, freely, and they're going to magically grow, another set of rights. How important is it that these artists today really learn, about what their finite rights are that they'll ever have to offer, or income streams, and how important it is to leverage those into more favorable deals or ultimately owning and controlling them themselves?
Well, for most people, they're going to need a manager or an attorney to review the contract with them. If it's a major label deal, like a Sony contract, could be 80 or 90 pages long. And it's hard enough for attorneys to understand everything in it. So the typical new artist would not be able to totally handle it on their own. Although, some new artists are very competent, very savvy. and are able to do more than most. One thing I wanted to mention is the role of production companies has changed. I've represented some production companies, and as they get bigger and more powerful, they start acting more like independent labels. Most of the deals I've done in the last 15 years, especially in R&B pop, have been deals not directly with the artist and the label, but through production companies. And for people who are unknown, to try to approach a label directly would be very difficult. Mostly we recommend that people try to get a manager or a producer interested in their career, or if they can get a production company. As far as protecting their rights, I have over the years had a lot of people come to me and come in and ask me to get them out of a contract, a management agreement, for instance, typically. And people rush into these agreements because they get excited when someone's interested in their career, and very often they don't get representation. And it's not automatic that you can get out of a management agreement. There's also some misconceptions about record deals. People will come to lawyers and say, well, I just got a 7-album deal. Well, no one gets a 7-album deal. You get a 0-album deal usually, and the record label decides if they're going to do 1, 2, 3, or any albums. People say, well, I want to be with the major label just for the first album. After they make me famous, then I want to go independent. Well, the major record labels won't let you do that. The major label contracts are not by the year; they are by the album, and they have options, 4 or 5 or more options. So if the record label wants to keep you, you're not going to get a contract where it's over in 3 years, for instance, or 2 years. I haven't really seen major labels do deals that way. They always do it by the album cycles. And yeah, the major labels can tie you up for 8, 10 years or more.
And if I can add one thing that's interesting, that's maybe Glenn's encountered this too, but the album configuration is sort of going away a little bit, but the record contracts are still structured around album cycles, and I'm curious to know sort of if that's going to change the terms of these things. I know when I do deals now, I try to not just base it on albums alone, but by track equivalent albums, because if you cut 10 singles, for instance, that's equivalent to an album, and the label might end up just releasing singles or bundles or EPs, 4 or 5 song configurations. So those should qualify, because if it's just based on an album, technically, you could be stuck in a contract forever, even though the label keeps putting out product. It's just not in a 10-song album form. So that's something to be aware of when you look at these deals.
Well, I think, again, too many people had heard, old wives' tales or urban myths, whatever you want to call them, that these record companies would just give you a lot of money to sign. They would make you rich and famous, and, everything was gravy from there. And, we've seen, of course, so many of the encumbered artists that really, again, were highly creative people like a Prince, who just could not sustain a relationship with a corporate atmosphere, say like a Warner Brothers. He wanted to put out the music he wanted, the way he wanted it, and now the internet gives him that opportunity. But again, these record companies and most of the 2 major ones, Sony and Universal, are part of large conglomerates that are heavily involved with TV and film and touring and merchandising. So they're not really looking out, for an artist's necessarily best interest. Their shareholders, their corporate, nature of their catalog and their quarterly revenues take precedent over, artistic decisions every day. And I think that's really key. Again, our guests tonight, we have 2 prominent music and entertainment attorneys, Ben McLane and Glenn-Litwak. We're talking about issues that are very, very important and near and dear to your heart. If you make music, you're looking to do this for a career, you're trying to maneuver your way through Hollywood here with all the giant companies or deals or opportunities. We're going to take a little clip right now, watch a promo on IES. Again, the event, the Indie Entertainment Summit, is August 7th through the 11th this year. We're proud to bring it back to the NoHo Arts District, which is right here in the heart of Los Angeles, the entertainment capital of the world. We'll be giving you out the website and all the information on how to attend. Coming right back with more great talk on the road to Hollywood.
Hey, what up? This is Corey from Slipknot.
This is Matt Sorum from Velvet Revolver.
What's up? It's your boy Mac 10.
Hey, this is Mike Inez from Alice in Chains.
What's up? This is Be Real from Cypress Hill.
What's up? I'm Sean from Yellow Card.
It's your boy Warren G.
I'm Brooks Wackerman from Bad Religion.
Hey, yo, this is Method Man.
This is Mick Jones from Foreigner.
I got a question for you. Are you serious about moving your creative career forward? Then you need to be at IES.
If you're a musician out there, you got a band, you want to rock, don't sit down on your ass and wait for someone to knock on your door.
You can do it yourself. Don't wait for nobody. Do your thing, man. You know, life is short. You only live once.
Totally independent, and I love it.
Everything's important about the indie world. It has been for a long time.
You got more control, and you make 10 times as much money. 10 times more money.
Don't wait for the record label. Do it yourself.
People need to hear the music that's in your head, that's in your fingers, that's in your heart. So get out there and let's hear it.
Because of the internet and because of the greed of those old school executives at these record companies, the power is now in your hands, artists.
Take back your art and don't sell yourself cheap or short to anyone.
If you believe in your music, if you believe in your gift, if you believe what God has given you, make sure you go to IES, show the world what you got. It's going to be going down here in Los Angeles, and it's something that gets all you independent artists getting going on that drive, doing what you guys got to do, man.
Be independent. Don't be afraid to be independent.
You got to be a part of doing you first, and that means independence. I implore you to go to the IES, the Independent Entertainment Summit, and do your thing.
If you think you know what you're doing in this music business, I don't care who you are, there are things you will learn.
The indie way is the way. You know, the large corporations have basically disintegrated. They're looking to the indie community to create the music and create the genesis of what's going to be the next environment.
If you've started a new band and you're having a little bit of trouble figuring out where to go next, or what you should be doing, who you should be talking to, whether you need a record label or how to get your music distributed, you need to go to the Indie Entertainment Summit. That's the place where you go to meet industry panel experts. They're going to tell you everything you need to know to get you where you want to be.
For me, I spend all of my days and months going around the world educating musicians on how they can better actually release their music and market their music. Part of my mission, it's part of the way that we can grow the music business. So I'm going to go at all the important summits that I can go to, and the Indie Entertainment Summit is going to be one of the places that I'll be. You want to be educated? You want me to help educate it? You better be there.
If you rap, sing, dance, model, DJ, or act, or like myself do comedy, you can't afford to miss this conference.
You're trying to do your thing in this business, and you're tired of waiting on somebody to help you. In August, come to LA, the Indie Entertainment Summit.
You know what time it is, man. It's that time, Rolex time. Chasing cash, get money, get care. Shout out to Hit Boy, G-Rock, Money Making Man, Stacy B, and Circa. And we here with the Indie Entertainment Summit, man. Y'all need to be here, man. It's in LA in August, man. Beautiful people here, man. Dropping knowledge, dropping gems about this new way to pursue this music and a new way to get this money, man.
It's the Indie Entertainment Summit. That's the IES, baby.
Very important place to be if you want information to take things to the next level. You may not have access to the internet. It's okay too. Go there. You have an opportunity, IES.
Write it, rap it, produce it, mix it, arrange it, rap it, sell it. That gives you the power.
Every second that you're sitting on your butt waiting for something good to happen, your competition is passing you by. So if you got a dream, go and fight for it and support Indie Entertainment Summit.
I need y'all to come out to my city and represent with the Entertainment Indie Summit. It's going down August 1st through the 5th. If you're an independent artist, you're an independent label, you want to get your music out there, you want to network, come out to Los Angeles.
All you gotta do is, if you want to blow up in this industry, go to IES conference in LA, Google it, you gotta be there.
Showcases, panels, opportunities, everything that Indie Entertainment Summit does is something that is very much for today's music industry. We know how it used to be, but we don't know how it's going to be tomorrow. But I think the Indie Entertainment Summit is going to be an opportunity for motivated, ambitious professionals to meet each other.
Music business is a hard thing to break into.
So you gotta do what you can. Check out IES, Indie Entertainment Summit.
If you're gonna be anywhere, you need to be at IES, man, in LA, man. That's where it's gonna be at.
It's going down just like that, August 1st through the 5th. IES, man.
If you ain't going to IES, you ain't gonna live to be an artist. You know why? IES, feed your mind, feed your soul. Get a good lawyer. They'll teach you which way to go.
If you're serious about your music, where do they need to be? You
gotta be at IES, yo.
What's that?
Indie Entertainment Summit.
You should check it out at IES.com. Hopefully this will become an annual event that we'll all be going to many years from now.
You need to be out to IES.
That's IES, baby. Going down August 1st through the 5th.
You have to check out IES.
IES, show the world what you got.
Ain't no excuses. It's now or never.
It's your chance to show the world what you've got.
IES.
I hope I see you there.
Indie Entertainment Summit, man. Circa, we gonna be there.
Indie motherfucking Entertainment Summit. Be there, January.
IES. Look for it online. The Indie Entertainment Summit.
If you really think you got what it takes to stand out, you really want to make sure you stand out, you can show the world what you got at the IES, the Indie Entertainment Summit.
IES, it's going to be here in Los Angeles.
Entertainment capital of the world. If you ain't there, you're nowhere.
And we're back with more from the road to Hollywood. You just saw a little clip from Kevin Lyman. We were at the Warped Tour kickoff this week. We did an exclusive interview with Kevin. You'll be seeing on a future show. And Kevin Lyman, who's, of course, the creator of the Warped Tour, the Mayhem Festival with John Reese, Country Throwdown. He will be speaking this year at IES. So come down, learn from all the leaders in the industry, and more importantly, get in front of these guys that run some of the biggest festivals and tours in the world. And they book independent artists, so there's more opportunities than ever to go direct. Now, our guests tonight, we have two prominent entertainment attorneys, Ben McLane and G.Litwak. We're talking about some of the issues and challenges that independent artists and creative people face these days. Ben, talk a little bit about the necessary team. We say, like, with a manager and an agent, they're some of the hardest guys to find, because the guys that are really doing it big, again, are working on a commission basis, and to take time away from prominent clients that could be paying all their bills to develop a new artist seems, one of the toughest things in the world. But who are the most important members of the team, obviously, besides a great entertainment attorney, that an independent artist or producer label needs these days?
Well, traditionally, in a perfect world anyway, you'd have a manager, which handles the day-to-day aspects of the artist's career and is kind of their general quarterback to advise and counsel, and hopefully that person has relationships with the industry and has a history and experience and knows how to break an artist and kind of hold their hand through the whole process. And when you work with a manager, it's a multi-year exclusive situation, so you want to make sure it's somebody you really gel with. Then also, yes, you need an entertainment attorney. That component's very important because all the legal things, trademarking, copyrights, all the agreements, and just general counsel an artist will need in their career. If it's a touring artist, they're really going to need a booking agent. Also, with a rock band and something like that, that may be the most important person to have on their team, because it's all about live and developing fans that way, and you really need a booking agent at some point. I mean, a lot of these things you can do independently initially, and you kind of have to, but at some point to get to the next level, you're going to need those professionals. An accountant or a CPA, business manager, something like that, to handle all the finances and paying all the bills and doing the taxes. And if you're lucky enough to make money, to help you make financial decisions, that person's important. And I also think if you don't have a label yet, having like a PR, press agent type person to help get exposure in the mass media, whether it's through the internet or television and radio, print, that's really, really important. So that's kind of the people that I see, the direct kind of links in a team. But of course, there's different variables there.
Sure. And, the smaller you are, the more hats you wear. But obviously out there on the road, ideally you need a tour manager and a merch person, because, with a lot of these young rock bands, that merch you sell at one show is the gas money to get to the next show. So it's vitally important. Glenn, talk a little bit about some of the common mistakes that young artists make. I mean, obviously they have to copyright their material. They sometimes they think the poor man's copyright and all that is enough. What are some of the more common mistakes you see that a lot of the independent artists make that cost them dearly later?
Well, of course,
entering into contracts without having legal representation. Sometimes on simple contracts, the manager can handle it themselves as a very routine contract, manager or an agent. But yeah, not having representation and signing agreements. And then a lot of the mistake people make is they run into sort of these people on the fringe of the music business who can waste a lot of their time. You run into this producer at Starbucks, and the pretty young lady is an aspiring singer-songwriter, and so the producer acts like he's interested, but he really just wants to meet the young lady. So there's a lot of people out there who can waste a lot of your time, and there's also people out there who can take advantage. For instance, if you pay a producer $1,500 a track, he's going to love your music. If someone's really interested in your career, hopefully you can find a producer who wants to work with you and is not going to charge you by the track. So sometimes people overpay for demos. Basically, some people just take too long to get their sort of media package together. There's people, you run into someone, they've been here a year. Do you have any pictures? I'm getting them redone. Do you have a bio? I'm working on it. If you can't get it together to have a bio, a website, pictures, you're not going to make it. If you can't figure that out, that's something you have to figure out yourself and do it right away. And then as far as people have to get out and do shows, I mean, that's still a way to get seen and get heard. And some people don't seem to want to do that. You start at the smaller clubs and you can work your way up. I have a new artist I'm representing now, and now she's starting to play places like the House of Blues, the side stage. And you can get exposure that way. Basically, you have to hustle. You have to really work hard in order to get your name out there. And, of course, obviously you have to have the talent.
Sure. And these days I think it's vitally important before you even really put your name out there very far to get your URL, get your social media with that name, and, of course, get your name, trademark, get your service marks, get all your songs copyrighted, because we always hear the horror story of someone that didn't have it together, and there's some opportunist that's ready to take your great ideas and run with them and take them to the to Congress or the Copyright Office, or have that trademark before you do. Ben, talk a little bit about the young artists. They don't have much money. They're trying to get their music out there, and there's a lot of producers out there that would love to tax them. If you're not paying that producer a reasonable fee up front for the work for hire, what are some of the problems with like a spec deal, or maybe there's no paperwork, and now all of a sudden the music gets out there and the producer wants more than what he should have gotten?
Well, the biggest problems I see are with spec deals or low money deals. With the producer is they're going to expect or probably claim that they own the master tapes, the master recording, either fully or at least partially, where they'd be a joint owner. And in that case, they could actually maybe bar or hamper the artist from releasing the masters the way they want to, whether they want to put it on iTunes or they want to put it in a film or a television commercial. They may, if you have a joint owner, at least initially, you're going to need everybody's permission to do that. And the producer might say, well, hey, no, I want more money. And until I get that, I'm going to sit on these masters, because they usually have possession of them too, a lot of times, which is an issue. You should always want to get copies or originals of the tapes as you go along, just in case, because sometimes you have problems with the producer down the line even when you don't expect it. And the other thing is, a lot of producers contribute music, and sometimes it's valid that they do, words or music, and sometimes it's not valid, and they might claim that they co-wrote the song, which is also a separate copyright. And if you don't have some kind of an understanding with them as to whether they did, and if they did, is it 50% of the song or 30% of the song? And again, do they have joint equal say in how the songs are exploited? These are things that you need to work out in the contract. That's why it's always good to have at least a simple piece of paper. But when you don't have any paper and you just leave it up to chance, it's a recipe for disaster usually.
A typical scenario would be you meet, the young artist meets a new producer, and then they get all excited about working together, and they start going to the studio, and the feeling is, well, let's just work together and see what happens. and they don't. Let's not waste any time or money on paperwork right now. Let's just work together and see what happens. And I've actually seen situations where there's a dispute between the producer and the artist. It's never resolved, and basically the artist has to start over. Can't use that material. So you have to get a clear understanding. Even if you write it up yourself on a piece of paper, it's better than nothing, usually.
So it doesn't have to be full of legalese and everything. I mean, you can specify, I'm paying you X number of dollars, you're going to record this, I'm going to own it. If you contribute music to it, we're going to decide at that session what the split is. It can be in basic, normal, understandable language.
Sure. I mean, in a perfect world, you'd have an attorney prepare it, but as a practical matter, that's not always possible. Also, a new artist can go to, there's places like California Lawyers for the Arts that'll give you for $35 a half-hour consultation with an experienced entertainment attorney, and that's a pretty good deal.
Great deal.
Yeah. And Ben, again, talk a little bit about what that artist should do as they move that stuff along, because what we've found is over time, it's when people want to work together initially, it's a lot easier to negotiate. Once everybody's buzzing about that song and the phone's ringing and the majors are, on the hunt, all of a sudden people's memory gets a little cloudy if they don't have that piece of paper, and all of a sudden one's worth, can be greatly exaggerated, especially on a producer side. So what are some of the other things that artists can do, songwriters or producers? Maybe they're working with a film company. What do they need to do to protect their rights so they can maximize their, not only revenue streams but ownership in the future?
Well, the biggest thing is with various types of agreements when you're working with third parties, if you're hiring them or even if they're doing on spec, the artist should do what's called a work for hire agreement, where the other party's agreeing that the artist owns the rights and owns the copyrights. That doesn't mean that the third party, say it's a producer, won't be paid a percentage of the income that's earned off those rights when it's exploited, but that the artist gets to control, or I would like to call it administrate, all the rights, the songs, the masters, their name, if that's an issue. They just don't want to have anything that hampers them moving forward or any restrictions whatsoever, especially if they're going to go to a label or a film company or somebody like that. Those companies just want to be able to put things out freely without any restrictions. They don't want to deal with anybody else. They just want easy licensing, essentially. So just try if you can, and even if you're not paying people up front, work things out where you control everything, and then everybody gets paid on the back end fairly. But that has to be in writing.
Sure. Well, again, there's so many issues. It's really it's so important to be a student of the game. There's a lot of information online on the internet. There's great books. There's all sorts of resources. But it's one of the reasons why we started IES is to be able to come down, listen to these topics in depth on multiple days, meet a lot of the individuals that are doing what you hope to be doing, and create some potential relationships, collaborations, interest from other people that might want to work with you. Again, the dates this year are August 7th through the 11th. You can go to the website IESFest, that's FEST.com, short for festival, and find out all the details, the incredible over 100 industry leaders that will be speaking on various panels and workshops, the IES honors, again, both inducting on the rock side and the hip-hop side some of the most legendary characters and trailblazers in our industry, and Deal Link, which will put you one-on-one where you can present what you do to industry decision makers. So much more. It's growing every year. We look forward to having you there. Glenn, I know you did a recent article with Music Connection. Why is it so important these days, besides all the internet and just meeting people out and about, to attend a conference like IES and really learn from solid professionals?
Well, the article I wrote for Music Connection was about networking, and networking at music conferences actually was what it was about. And that's more than just running up to the table after the panel speaks and trying to talk to one of the panelists. You could meet someone in the elevator. You can any time during the conference, especially if it's an out of town conference and you're staying at a hotel. There's opportunities to meet people all the time. Opportunities sometimes to showcase. And these music conferences, you can Google them, and there's lots of them all over the country. One thing I wanted to mention, though, is that we were talking about contracts. It's important to have a good written contract, but basically you also have to do your due diligence, your homework. You have to research, if it's someone that you're dealing with that you don't know, you have to research through the internet and through friends and acquaintances this person's reputation and this person's experience. If someone tells me they've produced for Beyonce, then I expect to see their name on the album. So you have to check people out. And what if someone says, I worked with Beyonce, what does that mean? Are you the hairstylist? So you have to be very careful who you're dealing with and check out their credentials, because if you enter into a contract with a disreputable person, they'll breach the contract. So the first step is always to check the person out. And with the internet, it's become much, much easier to check people out.
And Ben, we've spoken at dozens of conferences, together over many, many years. Briefly, as we wrap up, what is the most important thing, why it's so important to go to a live event like IES and really network and meet the pros?
Well, I think just my experience has been this whole entertainment business, but it's true for any business. It's really, you have to know, you have to be knowledgeable and not be an idiot, but it really is who you know, and you have to have a web of relationships just because you need people, you need to form alliances. And to me, it's the face-to-face relationships, if possible, make so much more difference than just having some kind of email or far-away relationship with somebody. It's just not the same. And the only way you can do that is to go and meet these people and form a kind of a bond. And I think they have more respect for somebody that'll make the effort to go and shake their hand and present a professional package. It's just really important. It's invaluable.
Now, again, our special guests tonight have been two prominent music and entertainment attorneys. That's Ben McLane and Litwak. You can Google them, find their office numbers if you're in need of legal services. These are two gentlemen that I highly recommend. We really appreciate you tuning in tonight. So much great information. We'll check you out next week on the road to Hollywood. Here's some more backstage with IES from some of the great speakers. See you next week.
At the Indie Entertainment Summit, IES, and we're here in NoHo, North Hollywood. It's in my neck of the woods, which is the entertainment capital of the world, and this is the first of many to come, I believe, of these conferences. It's 4 or 5 days, and yesterday was the first day. I was on a panel. I came out here along with Jerry Heller, who's a legend in the business, Steve LaBelle, who's a legend in the business. We were on a panel together. There were many panels yesterday. There's a ton of new artists here, new record labels here. I asked, where are people from? There's a guy here that I met from New Zealand. Any state that you can think of in the United States, there's somebody here representing that state. It's pretty wild that this is the first one, and there's just so many people from all over the world, I guess, here. Last night I saw some great talent. I usually come to these events and I'm here maybe during my panel, and then I meet a few people and I take off. Last night I stayed after my panel. I met a ton of people. I got some great demos while I was here, and I actually stayed for a showcase, and I stayed till the bitter end last night. I stayed until the bar closed. Wasn't drinking, just watching music. I stayed until 2 a.m. and then I wanted to come back again today. I'm not on a panel today, but I wanted to be here because this is happening. There's so many people here, and so many people that may need my help, and so many people that I can learn from and I can pick up some new music from. I'm just so excited about this, and if this is the first one, I can't wait to see what happens here next year. This is pretty amazing. Jay has put on an amazing show, an amazing conference. People are really getting something out of this one. Right now on stage is Ted Cohen, who is the guru of digital. This guy, I used to work with him for a little while at Warehouse. He went on to work at all the major record labels in digital. He's here right now dropping his knowledge on kids and people that may not know anything about the business, and I guarantee you they're going to leave here knowing something about the digital business just from meeting Ted. I mean, it's a who's who on the panels. The panels are all saying something. They're meaningful. They're they're panels that people are really going to get some good education from legends in the business and people who know what they're talking about. So I'm so excited about this. I'll probably be here tomorrow. I'll probably come back on Saturday evening. It's so great. Again, Jay, you put on a great show, and thank you for inviting me to be on a panel and to hang out.
My name is Brian Shafton. I'm a partner at RBC Records, home to the largest urban independent acts, including Tech Nine, E40, DJ Quick, Exhibit, and many more. I'm here at the first annual IES convention. I was on a panel today, which I volunteered for. I'm all about my business, so some people might say, why are you doing this panel for free? The reason I'm doing it for free is so I can educate these artists as to what to do, and I expect to be able to find someone this year or next year that I can actually sign to my label and work with as they have this experience and this knowledge that's empowered and impacted by all of these tremendous industry heavyweights out here. It's an unbelievable opportunity. If you're an artist, if you're an online marketing company, if you're a label owner, if you want to network, this is the place to be. It's chock full of people, chock full of important people. It's something I plan on being next year. It's somewhere that I'm going to look to sign new artists from, assuming that they take everyone's advice. And there's no way you're going to have an opportunity to meet with all of these people under one roof in Los Angeles, the home of the music business. I look forward to seeing you next year.